Hello everyone and welcome back to Soul Stained Ink. My name is Beth and today I want to talk to you about my new favorite middle grade series. Though I had heard about it before, I didn't really discover and or read Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library prior to the hashtag S'mores and Mayhem Summer Reading Readathon. And that was put on by ACOS. And we read middle grade books set in the summertime, so they had to go to summer camp or have some adventure over the summer. And in Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, that is exactly what happens. They don't go to camp, but they have a big adventure right at the beginning of summer. This book focuses on Kyle Keeley, who is the third son in his family. He is 12. His older brothers are a genius and a jock who are just amazing at pretty much everything they do. And then there's Kyle. He gets average grades. He's an average kid, and basically he can always only beat his brothers when they play board games. And then they go to school the last couple of weeks of school and find out that Mr. Lemoncello, who is the maker of all of these board games that Kyle loves to play, is the person behind the new library in Alexandriaville where they live. This library is meant to replace one that had been torn down a little over 12 years previous, and because none of the students that are 12 or under have ever had a public library in their town, Mr. Luigi Limoncello has decided to have an essay contest. And so the 12-year-olds are going to write an essay and turn that in, and there will be a judge. And I believe there are 12-year-olds to start out with, maybe 6. I don't remember exactly. But there are a group of 12-year-olds who are chosen from their essays to go and be the first people to have library cards to check out the library. And they're going to have a big kind of lock-in overnight stay at the library before its official opening the next day. And what happens is they get to learn all of these things about the library, and then they get locked in, and it's a giant game to figure out who can get out of the library first, and that person will win this huge prize. Along the course of this book, you learn a lot about friendship, you learn a lot about character, you learn a lot about working together, and you learn a lot about the library. It talks about the Dewey Decimal System. It talks about a lot of the different books, so you get name drops like none other from anything from child books, picture books, all the way through like cookbooks, encyclopedias, history. It covers all of these aspects, and the library itself is amazing. There is a huge room with soundproof walls that not only has smell-o-vision, but also has a lot of educational games, and it's just really, really cool. The imagery is amazing. I want to go live in this library. And the idea of all of these books is amazing. And Kyle is not the biggest reader. He loves to play games. He doesn't read that much. So all throughout the book, the other kids are talking about these different books they've read. And most of the time, Kyle is going, that sounds cool. I'm adding that to my TBR. That sounds cool. I'm adding that to the list. And it's kind of an ongoing joke, but you learn about so many different books, classic reads, contemporary reads. And so a kid reading this book gets an idea of about 15 to 20 or more other books they might want to read. And I have a TBR list from reading Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library and Mr. Lemoncello's Library Olympics. Now, Mr. Lemoncello's Library Olympics is a little different and a little darker. During this book, at the beginning of this book, several people, several factions of kids from around the United States are sending in emails. They're online tweeting and griping, complaining about the fact that they did not get the chance to compete in this big event at the Alexandriaville Library. And they say they could have done better than the winning team. And so the kids are brought back from Alexandriaville, as well as several other teams, and they're having Library Olympics. They have a huge amount of games. I think there are 6 games and 7 teams or something of that nature. And they win Olympic medals, but library geared. The imagery in this is still just as amazing as in the first book. The bibliographic nature of this is still amazing. I have more books that I added to my TBR because of this book. But it has a darker underscore. It talks about more about cheating, more about trying to undermine other people. It talks about being a bully, and it has themes of bullying both in the adult world and in the children's world. It talks about how things are normal, and sometimes normal isn't exactly what you need. And it also has several other small underlying factors of like stealing, um, pretending to be someone you're not letting one thing stop you from loving something you've loved your entire life. I could go on and on. But this book was a little bit darker. It showed depression, it showed all sorts of different emotions. But one thing that stayed the same was the feel of the book. It is definitely a bibliophile's dream. This series is all about the love of books, and it's sassy and delightful. I cannot wait for book 3. I can't remember the title of book 3. I'm not entirely certain when it comes out, but I am so excited to get more of this world with Mr. Lemoncello and these kids. So excited, in fact, that I went ahead and messaged Mr. Grabenstein on Goodreads, and he very kindly responded and gave me his author's email address so that I could send him some questions. So he actually did a 9-question interview for me to put on my blog. I'm going to give you 3 of the questions and answers, and just the short ones. And I want you to go check out the blog if you're interested in learning more. So the first thing that I asked him was that I had known the basis for the Limoncello idea and the library, but where did he base his characters from, and was he in fact Mr. Limoncello? He gave me a really nice full answer, but the end of the answer says yes, he based Limoncello on himself and on the creative genius of the late Jim Henson, who he worked for in the 80s. And that just makes me love both Chris and Mr. Limoncello even more, because Jim Henson is an amazingly creative and wonderful individual. And I'm just so pleased that I know someone who worked with Mr. Henson, and that just makes me love that character so much more. Another question I asked him is if there's anything different in how he writes for the middle grades as opposed to the adults, because he does write across age levels and genres. And basically, he said that he has a really short attention span, like a 12-year-old. So he does his best to keep the long paragraphs to a minimum, because if he's getting bored writing them, then the kids are going to be bored reading them, and it's no good for either one of them. And I thought that was just a fabulous way to put it. I also asked him what books are currently on his reading list. He gave me 3, but the one I found most humorous was that he is currently reading Hamilton. That's right. He's got the Hamilton. And I just went, really, Chris? Now my favorite middle grade author is pushing Hamilton on me. I better just jump on this bandwagon. So I'm going to try to find some of the Hamilton songs to listen to when I drive to my interview in just a little while. Those are 3 of the 9 questions, and I paraphrased and shortened all of those answers anyway. So I'm going to link up the interview down below. I hope you will check it out, and go check out Chris Grabenstein. He co-authors the iFunny books and many, many more, the Treasure Hunters, and I don't even know, a whole bunch of books with James Patterson. And then he also has his own middle grade and adult books. I've not read any of his adult books, but I have read some of the co-authored books and the Mr. Limoncello's Library and Dr. Libris, The Island of Dr. Libris, and they are sassy and delightful. So please go and check them out, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye.